Hola chicos, en este screencast nosotros vamos a hablar del verbo ser and specifically how we describe ourselves with this verb. And we've been using it a little in the past here, and I want to make sure that we have a good understanding of how to do it. So what we've been all doing throughout in the anatomy of the verb presentation, we saw how these verbs work. And so we saw our forms of verbs, and I'm not going to get into that. If you want to know that, you can go back to that screencast before. Basically, yo soy is your I am. We know that when we talk about yo, it means I, and soy is the conjugation of the yo form, meaning I am. The verb to, if you want to ask someone a question, you would use the to form. You're asking them specifically a question, and that's going to be you are. Now, important note about this, if we get a little bit more specific with this, when you're asking questions, you need to know some question words. So one of the common things we're talking about the expression, where are you from? And so it's important to know this expression, de donde eres, right? Where are you from? Notice that in Spanish, we have a little bit of a reverse here. Donde is your word for where, de is your word from of or from. So it's literally saying, from where are you? That's kind of the organization of this. But if you just memorize this expression sort of on its own, de donde eres, from where you're from, you got it under control. We got to know how to ask those questions in Spanish. So continuing on, we talked about yo, we talked about tu, and the other form that we're going to talk about is this él, or ella, or usted form. Now the ones we're going to concentrate on for now are él and ella. You guys know that usted is the you formal. If you're talking to someone that you don't know well, you could say, like up here we said de donde eres, you could say de donde es usted. But let's concentrate on él o ella. If you're talking about somebody from Mexico, or somebody that you want to talk about, really anybody at all, your word él is he, and then your word ella is she. And there's one form for that verb, and it's es, and it means is. So we have soy, this one, I am, tú eres, you are, or in a question, we could set it up that way. And then él, ella, es, which is he or she is. Now what comes after all of these words is really up to you. These that we just talked about, these are all the singular forms. That means that in all of these, you're talking about only one person at a time. This would be the left-hand side of your conjugation grid. So let's open up another page here, and let's talk about the plural forms. So when you want to use the verb ser in the plural, it's very common to talk about we in Spanish, and we know that when we want to say we, it's nosotros. And the conjugation for that verb is nosotros somos, which means we are. And anything after that obviously is going to fill into that sentence. So the conjugation somos, nosotros. Now it's important to understand that if it's all girls, if you're talking about all girls, this form will change to nosotras. But if there's one guy and 21 girls, we keep it in the masculine form just because Spanish is that way. We've talked about that, how Spanish is kind of a masculine language. The vosotros form means you all. Now the conjugation is sois, and I talked to you guys about how this is really only used in Spain. I'm not all that concerned about it. You won't hear me use it too often. It's kind of one of those things that I'll put in parentheses. If you want to use it, you can. Not something that necessarily you need to know about unless you plan to go to Spain. So how do we say then you all? Well, it's a part of the next conjugation, the third person plural, which consists of ellos, ellas, and ustedes. Out of those three forms, the one ustedes is the one that we're going to use for you all, or you guys, whatever. In English, at least in this part of the country, when we're talking about more than one you, we'd say, you guys, what are you guys doing today? Where are you guys going? That kind of thing. Other parts of the country, they say you all or y'all. And in some places, they even say yous. What are yous doing? Entonces, aquí tenemos ellos y ellas. What do those mean? Those are your word for they. Those are your words for they. Sorry. And the conjugation of this verb is son. So we use this, ellos son, they are, and we could use the sentence in what we were just talking about, something like this. I'll do it in blue. Ellos son de Mexico. And of course, ellos, just like él and usted, can mean, it can be substituted by people. Juan y Marta son de Mexico. But instead of él on the other one, Juan es de Mexico. So it's important to understand that these are just pronouns. So really quickly, just to reviewing this really fast, your conjugations of the verb ser. And again, conjugations, the verb means to be. They don't mean anything, they don't do anything for you unless you know how it's set up. But they are soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. Sois being the vosotros form, the one that you don't necessarily need. If you know these conjugations and you know how to use the verb sed, that means that you can describe yourself to an extent. You can describe what your personality is, you can describe your identity, you can describe where you're from, all kinds of stuff. So this is a key verb for us to know. Muy bien, vamos a parar aquí. We're starting with basic stuff. Next time in class, you'll be expected to be able to play with these and use them in action. Muchas gracias por su atención. Nos vemos en clase. Chao.